Today's Homestead Security and Defenses is what we're looking at. Homestead Security and Defenses. So like I say, there's a separate kind of a ordeal that we need to consider, make considerations for if we're doing a bug out scenario. That would be a completely different show that I do. We'll be talking about defenses, security, protection in a bugging out scenario, right? So what we're going to be focusing here today on is going to be the homestead. So this is like... So what we're going to do is we're going to base this on a complete grid down. So this is our SHTF. This is how we're going to need this security and defenses big time because it's Mad Max styly. This is what we're heading for. So this is our situation report, right? So just try and get your mindset into this. I'm sure you've pictured it a million times, but this is going to be the 1,000,001st time. Complete grid down scenario, no juice, no outlets, no nothing. Inoperable sewage systems, flush the toilet, it's not going anywhere. Inoperable water system, turn the faucet, turn the tap, no water's coming out. Total cell and internet outage as well. Don't forget your cell towers have less than about 48 hours worth of battery backup in them. So major transport disruptions, which is just inevitable, of course, where you don't have any traffic systems running, you don't have any, people don't care, they're in a panic, they're trying to get to the store, which is closed or completely ransacked already. All trade and commerce ceased with the digital system we're already in. Once the internet goes down, the power goes down, they have no way of taking your money, they have no way of checking that item through the till to even know what it costs. I'm going to look at this from a perimeter point of view, and it's just the easier way to break it down. So we're going to start off from our least biggest threat, from starting all the way out, and then we're going to work in closer and closer and closer into ourselves. So your immediate neighbours now is where we're going to be getting, you'll notice the colour up the top here is getting oranger and redder as we go, right? Because we're getting closer and closer in. The threat is becoming very close to us now, so don't forget this is our house here. Yeah. So we're just looking at these immediate neighbours around us. So our immediate next door neighbours and those that we live next door to, have relationships with, see in the mornings, maybe our kids play together, yeah, our children play together and things. So this is what we're looking at now, is the immediate neighbours. So again, just for familiarity, this is our town, this is where we live. This is our house here that we live in, as the example here. So what we're going to be looking here is, of course, we've got this immediate neighbour here. They've got a conservatory there. We have view here from that window of their garden. So what we can be looking to do here is to say, well, what security can we offer our neighbours, right? What advantages can we offer our neighbours as a way of, you know, offering them an opportunity to watch out on us too. So you're almost creating an on-the-fly neighborhood watch scheme, right? But it's going to involve you making sure you have a way of communicating with them. You're not going to be able to send them a text message. Don't forget, there's no cell towers in this scenario. There's a grid down scenario. So there's no cell towers. There's no sending someone a text message. It's ham radios or nothing. Yeah? So what you need to be doing is to make sure that these people, as I said, who are like close to you here, right? People who can see in your garden, your immediate neighbor here, you need them to have a ham radio. If they haven't got their own, make sure you make provisions to buy one for them. You can get a pack of 3 of these now for about $50. It's craziness. Can you afford not to have one or 3? I would suggest not. Because believe me, when all your neighbours are panicking and they're all anxious and they're all scared and they're hearing those windows break down the road, they're hearing those screams and them cries coming from down the road as it's coming more and more up the road towards you each night, believe me, your neighbours are going to be taking anything from you you've got to give them to help them. They're not going to be resistant. They're not going to be resistant, right? Particularly if you're saying to them, hey, buddy boy, you know, I know we had that disagreement last year over that thing with our barbecue smoke going, yeah, right? But whatever, yeah, it's just, I can see your garden from here. We have a patrol running, which we'll get into in a minute. We have a patrol running where we're always on watch all the time on patrol. And we'll make sure that if we see anyone in your garden, here's a ham radio, keep it on all the time. Here's a charger. Here's a battery that will stay with it. Let us know when a battery runs out. I'll give you a new one. Right? Now what I do, just as a heads up, right? If you're going to have a ham radio for your neighbours, for example, don't give them a charger. This is an option, but what I recommend instead is to give them, and again, this is why I say about having the extended batteries, right? Is you need to be able to have if you have the extended batteries, what you do is you can still charge these batteries on their own in the chargers. So you can have a bunch of these, you know, they're very cheap, inexpensive, yeah. So this is a 3,800 milliamp hour pack, 3.8 amp hour pack. Now, if you have a bunch of these spare, what you'll be doing is you'll be meeting your neighbor, checking their battery level and let him know when your battery gets to 1 bar, let me know. What are you going to do? You're going to take his battery out and you're just going to go bang with a new battery and he's good to go. You're not going to mess around taking it off him and charging it for 3 hours and then giving it back to him, are you? Because it means he hasn't got a ham radio for 3 hours. So you need to have a bunch of spare batteries. You need to be quick release. You need to be bish bosh bash. There's your battery. There's a new one. Thank you very much. Turn it back on. You're back in business. Right? And you have a bunch of batteries on rotation. So there's no reason for them to not have their ham radio at all times. Okay? I've seen some pretty massive prepper channels who don't consider the most obvious. I ain't even going to get into it, but no one talks about this. It's like they've never actually thought it through in their life. It's quite amazing and embarrassing for the preparedness community when you've got people like 1 million subscribers who don't think through the most obvious of things properly and tell people to do the most ludicrous things that are just not thought through. So like I say, buy a bunch of spare batteries, clunk clunk, switch out the batteries, right? Make sure they're familiar with it. This will be a separate video I will do. There is a way you can lock the keypad. You do not want your neighbor to mess up the programming accidentally. So you need to make sure it's programmed. You've got channel numbers in. They know how to use it. Pushy, pushy button. You've got the keypad locked so they can't accidentally mess it up, right? Human error is going to get you and your family into trouble every time. What you need to make sure is it's not your human error, yeah? And do what you can to limit the possibility of someone else's human error being a proxy threat to you, right? Or being a threat to you by proxy. So by having these dudes set up with ham radios that they know how to use, if they've got their own, even better. If they haven't, buy some for them, right? Get those relationships down, understand where the threats in their garden is, where the entry points in their garden is, because it will be from their garden to your garden, right? So when we're talking about things like your local immediate neighbors, we're considering stuff like this, right? So we've got wireless CCTV, PIR motion sensors. So we want to be slightly broader than our local perimeter of our property, because that's next, yeah, is our actual property perimeter, which we're getting to next, right? We'll get even more orangier when we get to that, right? So we've got wireless CCTV here again, because of course, and PIR motion sensors. So, you know, with our scenario here and our situation, it would make sense, obviously, to have, you know, cameras on our property as well as down the road. If we can get some ones that can reach down the road and we can get the heads up as sort of things that are coming up the street, yeah, from the main entrance and exit routes, right? We're already a choke point here because it's a cul-de-sac, right? And the problem is that if somebody turns up here, this is the place they're going to turn around. So you could end up with a lot of traffic here, inadvertently, right? So to have cameras set up here, so you don't have to keep going outside, or if you've got a camera at the back here, checking out the woodland here, and as well with night vision technology with the cameras, you know, with floodlights and stuff, is going to give you an advantage to see them at night coming in from other areas, right? So your CCTV is important. Now, the other option you've got as well when it comes to, you'll notice here I've got listed the PIR motion sensors as well. Now, there's some really easy stuff, like really, really cheap, right? So check this out. This is the sort of thing like when I was living in Thailand, right? They have these things in 7-Elevens, yeah? And they're like a little PIR sensor, yeah? Just run on three AAAs, right? 3 AAA batteries. I use Eneloops and a recharger that I can run off my 12-volt battery bank. And then you just got the main receiver, which has got some AA's in it, right? Ideally, I'd rather have something with 18650s, but this is a receiver, this is a transmitter. This is designed to be a wireless doorbell, but it happens to have a whole million selection of different tones, but you can also have it where instead of having ringtone, it can just light this thing here flashes, yeah? You're probably not going to make it do it for me. It's bloody loud when it does it anyway. But basically the idea is that this has got a pretty good range, right? This is a good, again, 50-meter range I reckon you could get out of this. So you can have this. This is self-contained. It's got battery in it, right? And every time it's triggered, it will just be like, burr, 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 that kind of thing. Or beep, beep, beep. Or you can turn off the sound and just have the illumination happen. Yeah, and you know, if someone watching that, the minute, and you can buy these for about $30 for a pack of two sensors, right? And one receiver. So you can have those positioned. You can easily get away with them, right? Being, because you see the size of it, right? And again, you can just strap that to a tree, right? With a Velcro strap, job done, right? And then the idea being is you could have that even on the other side of this fence, on this bush. You could hide it in this bush, or over here with your next door neighbour's property, looking over in their garden, right? You could even put it at the front of your, you know, we could put it at the front of here as well, on the front of the drive, right? On the wall. Just literally sit it on the front wall. Yeah, you can buy these for $30 on AliExpress, right? Front wall. And again, my security, tactical security kit, which is different from the tactical comms kit, is going to have things like this in it, right? As well as things like the surveillance bugs, FM surveillance microphone bugs as well, to use for audible surveillance up the street, right? So these wireless PIR motion sensors can be a pretty good force multiplier, and you can set them up anywhere, and you can take these out for bugging out as well if you wanted to, because they're just battery operated and they don't require any main system to be able to operate, right? They're just literally self-contained. So that's a big thing. To be knowing when somebody even gets near your property is the key, right? We need the biggest heads up we can get before they even get near you, because if you've got 3 people, right, we'll get into this more on the next one, but if you've got 3 people, let's say as an example, in your property, then you're going to need to work out how you utilize those bodies and those people in a way that is, you know, strategically, you know, bespoke to the threat that's coming in. If that's people coming and roaming around in your back garden, to be honest, you've already failed. You don't want to get anyone to be anywhere near your property. You need to be, you know, approaching that threat head on. So external perimeter patrols, right? So this is where radio comms again is important, right? You've got somebody inside your house and they're going to be watching the TV screen for the CCTV. You're going to be having your own ham radio with your earpiece in. You're going to have the FM bug down the road maybe that you're listening to, right? But maybe you've got somebody indoors that's doing that, right? Now, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. External perimeter patrols is that you ideally need to be meeting that threat at your front gate. You don't want to be waiting for someone to knock on your door, ring on your doorbell, because the minute they're doing that, they're already touching your property. They're already there. This is about you standing at the front of your house and you are on rotation. So if there's 3 of you, for example, it means you've got 24 hours a day, 3 people. 24 divided by 3 is 8. That means you're on an 8-hour patrol, yeah, with 2 people on patrol, with 1 person sleeping at all times, right? So no, you never have a time where all 3 of you are sleeping. You have 8 hours sleep. While you're sleeping, the other 2 people are awake on patrol. One's indoors, checking out the monitors, checking out whatever, and the other person's on the front gate, is standing out here waiting. And of course the person indoors who's also awake is watching the TV monitors. So if he sees something or she sees something coming in from the back garden, on the ham radio, Andy, someone round the back, I come from this front point here. Obviously the third person gets woken up. There's someone on our property, whoop, right? You've now got 3 people. I'm already on the front. I'm now approaching these people. I'm approaching that threat. Either up against this fence here if it's next door, that someone's coming through next door, or if it's maybe a trigger here and they're just coming up this road, I'm going to make sure I'm coming out as far away from my front of the house as possible, yeah, to meet that threat. Carrying whatever you're carrying, we'll get into that in a minute. But you don't want to be letting them walk up to your door, so you need to be on patrol 24/7. There's going to be no point in time, yeah, where you're not going to be there to meet them as they arrive, not when waiting for them to knock your door and you have to open a door and then there's like 10 dudes outside. That's not how it goes down, right? And so that person indoors is operating the surveillance and the tactical surveillance in terms of monitoring all the things in all the directions, so that the person that's outside on patrol can be told via your ham radio where the threat's coming from, so that then you can swarm in it. And don't forget, that's going to include what? It's going to include your neighbor. Neighbor, wakey wakey, we've got trouble, right? Because just as much as if somebody comes around to my house, or our house in this case, right, to rob us, we're going to want our neighbors to help us to get rid of them, right? And equally, if our neighbor is getting robbed, either this chap here or maybe our other next door neighbor here, if they're getting robbed, the agreement's got to be that I'm going to come over and help them. And equally, they'll come over and help me because they're going to be in on it anyway. That's the whole point of this immediate neighbors principle, is that we need to make sure that these guys are on our side and we're on their side, and they understand that the benefit is as much for them as it is for us. Right, hell, you're even supplying them the ham radio, right? They don't even have to buy their ham radio. You're going to know someone's on their property probably before they do. And you'll be able to tell them via ham radio straight away, instantly. And again, by making sure you got something like your earpiece, use the earpiece rather than just talking in it, right? It also means, because you get the push to talk with the microphone here, when you're pushing it, you're able to speak very close to it and not obstruct your thing. Well, the other benefit to it is it means that you can maintain your ham radio like this. You can always tell when someone doesn't have a clue what they're doing, as I see lots of preppers do this, and they talk like that. Like they think it looks cool like this, but it's not. These antennas are polarized. Meaning, and this is a linearly polarized, I don't want to get too technical here, but this is a linearly polarized antenna, meaning the radio wave propagates in a linear fashion. Yeah. Now the problem is, as in the wave goes up and down like this from this antenna. So the other person, the other end, yeah, will need that wave to be the same, right? So if I think I look cool because I'm doing all this business, because I think I'm a cool prepper, look at me on my ham radio, giving it all. No. The problem with that is that you have a mismatch of polarity on the antennas, and that loses you 9 decibels. Yes, 9 decibels. So don't be a newbie. Don't be a newbie. Despite how many subs you've got, right? So bear in mind, to get best range, make sure that your antennas are always pointing up. One way to do that, don't forget, is what? Use an earpiece. Why? Because it means this is on your buckle and it's always straight up. The polarization of the antennas are not mismatched. You ain't going to lose your 9 decibel of attenuation of your signal. Just so you know. So annoying when I see people doing that. So keep your antennas straight, give you maximum range. They're polarized antennas. They both need to be parallel to each other, right? So let's get back to the slids. I am babbling, aren't I? But I hope that everything let us know in the chat if this is too much or whatever, or it's boring or whatever, or I'm getting into too many details. But no one else seems to do this, so I thought I might as well. So let us know in the chat how you feeling so far. Don't forget to vote as well in a live poll. If you've just joined us, of course, we are running a live poll. That's why I like to do these shows live. It's completely unrehearsed, and you just literally make the slides and just go for it, right? But what is your greatest concern when it comes to security and defenses during the, it hitting the fan scenario? Let us know live in a chat. What's your biggest concern of a homesteading scenario with an SHTF? Is it either A, the house burning down, or some form of damage, forcing you to have to bug out somewhere? Is it being overpowered by gangs? Is it maybe friends and family coming knocking? You're not quite sure how to say no, how to say go away? Or is it a little bit like that with a desperate mother begging? Maybe there's a woman at your door clutching with a baby crying, saying, please help me, I'm starving. Yeah. So let us know which are the ones out of them that are making you feel the most uncomfortable when you think it through. Crypto Sam, excellent granularity, perfect in my opinion. Thank you very much. That's cool. You're doing a great job, sir. Why, thank you, my all-American prepper. It's great, says Miss Firm. Okay, cool. Don't be a newbie. No, don't be a newbie. So, we love you, babbling Andy. Oh dear, thank you. Right, so what else we got to get through? So motion activated lights, obvious stuff, right? In terms of you can pick them up on Amazon for like 30 quid for a pack of 5 or something ludicrous, right? The ones I've got are pretty cool. I think there's 30 quid for a pack of 2, but they're pretty good. when I lived in Thailand, actually, that was when solar sort of was really starting becoming things, solar garden lights, and it was like one LED that would like last for an hour, and then that's it, right? But modern day today is pretty good going, right? So definitely, and of course it solves the problem of not having to have an expensive off-grid system. You can just use your motion activated lights, solar powered ones, right? Night vision, great, because to see people sneaking around in your bushes is pretty cool. Thermal vision, okay, but you'd be spending a lot of money to get anything with more than about a 5 meter, 2 meter range, right? So yeah, agreed. Neighborhood lookouts, we've covered that in terms of your radio comms with your nearest neighbors. Do get yourself a couple of extra if unlike me, you have a budget. Please, get yourself a couple of extra, more for the reasons that you can't think of than the reasons you can, of course. Get yourself some spare batteries, as I said, as well, so you can go chung chung and just swap out your neighbor's batteries, your kids' batteries, or whatever, right? Chung chung. And let them know as well to let you know when it gets to 1 bar. Don't let it get it to the point where it's turning itself off, because you're gonna be affecting the capacity of the battery, right? You're gonna be spanking it. You shouldn't really take it below about 80% of the charge of a battery, really, to be doing long-term damage. You should get about 400 or 500 recharges. The other thing to tell you as well, don't leave these things sitting in a charger. That's another thing I see as well when I watch these guys who call themselves preppers on their big old YouTube channels, and I see their ham radios sitting in their charging base in the background with the light on. 12 months you get on your battery, 12 months. If you leave this battery in a charger for more than 12 months, you're down to something like 15% of its capacity. Do not leave these things on charge. It sits there constantly topping up the battery. You're causing a chemical reaction on a constant basis, meaning that you are reducing the life cycle of it to 12 months. So by the time you go to use it, you'll turn it on. It'll look like it's full bar. Within 15 minutes, it's like... So do yourself a favor, get yourself some extra battery packs. Take your battery packs out when you're leaving them in storage. Do not leave them in your charger ad infinitum. They don't like it. The batteries don't last long if you leave them in the chargers. Distant warning sounds, as I said. Neighbours' dogs, maybe you've got some things up the road. Alternatively, don't forget about what I said about having things like the FM radio surveillance bugs are perfect for your immediate neighbours. Great range just down the road, just to pick up some audio to hear someone walking down. And just, if you have to, go up there with some bottle glass, scatter that around, and that'll help you to hear them coming, right? So your bins, your tools used to break in. So this is important, right? Your obstacles, gravel, scrap metal, noisy stuff, right? Easy target for bins and tools to break in. So what I'm talking about there is where you're in a situation, and I see it all the time, right? I mean, to be honest, our place isn't perfect, right? I mean, but you see people having run a security company for many years, right? And home and office security. The ways that people get in, I can tell you now, because I've seen a lot I've visited and done quotations and surveys on lots of properties who, unlike most people who I preferred, who would buy an alarm, investing in an alarm system, a security system, before they get broken into, most people call me up, or used to back then, after they've been broken into and they want a security system, right? So you get to see a lot of how it works, how they do it, and what's most typical. And yeah, it's pretty much opportunist stuff, because people know if they go equipped, then if the police pull them over on the street and they're walking up the street with a hoodie and they get pulled over and, you know, they check their pockets and they've got pliers and bolt croppers and goodness knows what, that's called going equipped in the UK in terms of legal standing on that, right? And that's the assumption that you're going to burgle somewhere. So what they'll do is they'll turn up to your property and they'll just have a look around your garden. There'll be a shed and they'll find like a step ladder in the shed, and they'll find a spade they can use to get your patio door open or something like this. Or they'll find a little in your conservatory here that's not particularly secure. There's probably a little pot in there with a bunch of screwdrivers. So now they can just start hammering away at your door as much time as they want, hidden in a little corner, and you've given them all the tools they needed, right? You might have a situation where you've got things like your wheelie bins or some bins sitting around outside that people can use to jump over your fence. Like here, look, you can just see them down the side of the fence, right? These sorts of things, right? You could always, as well, if you felt like you had a threat here, there was one particular place that was likely for people to come in from the neighbour's garden into yours, right? This is where this is where I'm saying you can have things like noisy stuff like scrap metal, like old bikes and like old prams and shopping trolleys or whatever, you know what I mean? And just, you can make it very difficult to people to get into your property. But you also need to make sure you're not making it difficult for you to get as an exit from your property as well if you need to, right? So do bear all that in mind when it comes to immediate neighbours. You need to be figuring out, you might better, you and your neighbours, for example, there's no reason why not here in your cul-de-sac scenario, right? There's no reason why you couldn't coordinate with your neighbours and just park your cars at the end of this road. All of you park your cars at the end of this road, put your wheelie bins at the end of this road, and you just make a blockade. It's like, no, you ain't coming up here. No one's coming up our road. Easy peasy, right? And you make sure you maintain that threat at one point. At this point, happens to be the furthest distance from our house here, right? But it benefits the whole street, doesn't it? If you just make it difficult for people to want to come down here, they'll just carry on up the road around here, right? Governments use this technology and this like clever architecture all the time to make people want to walk more one way than another. That's how it's engineered like that, right? There's all sorts of techniques involved. So, remember, capping off on immediate neighbour perimeter, right? This is important coming up because we're getting pretty gnarly now. So remember, enlisting the help of your neighbours can be a great force multiplier. Make an effort to strengthen your relationships and be sure to buy an extra ham radio for them too, as I'm sure I've exhausted that entire principle with you over the last 20 minutes or something. Rebecca Mardis, great to see you in the house. So yeah, she's saying we had someone stop by a house and ask if we wanted to get rid of a basketball pole and hoop, and the only way he could have known it was in our backyard was he snooped via a drone. Like it. There you go. You can always jump over to the singleprepper.com website. It looks like this. Yes, with the fire burning. Don't end up around a campfire eating squirrels on sticks. Instead, get prepared with Single Prepper. So jump on in and you'll scroll down the homepage. There's one here actually, Prepping Community. Look, you can just click on that. But all my socials are at the bottom as well. Little links down there. Actually, it's behind me, innit? Yeah. But you've got your links down there. But of course, in the description of this video as well, you'll find all the links to ways you can follow us. And again, a great community there over there on Discord. And Manuel Bravo in the house. As I say, use a fence border with bear traps. They won't get far. But you have to worry about your own team members, your neighbours as well, getting copped by it. Yeah, doing yourself in can be a thing as well, right? So bear that in mind. I know what you're saying about bear traps, but... So yeah, do try and form some good relationships with your immediate neighbours because they will be the ones watching out for you. Now, we're properly getting into it now with the property perimeter. Now really... And you can see we're getting orange, right? We're getting orange.